Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of In the Hours of Truth. Today, for first time with us, is Jim Webb, former Senate staffer for Rand Paul, one of the few good ones left, especially these days,
Okay.
on the State Foreign Relations Committee, combat Marine infantryman, fought in Ramadi, Iraq, senior advisor to RFK Jr. on his campaign. Are you still working with RFK?
No. I got my own podcast now. So
Okay, okay. Third generation Marine. I read that about your third generation Marine. And he's got his own podcast, Jim Webb podcast. So overall, let's talk.
Hello, dear friends. Just want to remind you if you like this video, you like what you hear, click like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Send it to your friends. Let's grow this channel. Maybe we can finally hit it up to 100,000. That'd be a good round number for the summer. So let me know, leave some comments, and give a thumbs up. So look forward to seeing you in the next video. Cheers.
yes, sir. No, hey, Stas, thanks for having me on. Happy to
Mhm.
be here. It's already been fun.
We were having a pre-conversation. Hey, where can people find you except outside Jim Webb podcast? That's on YouTube, or
Yeah,
where's
it's
it
on
being hosted?
YouTube, wherever you can find podcasts, Spotify,
Mhm.
Rumble. You can find me on X. It's James Webb underscore
Mhm.
16 on X, and that's me personally. The
Mhm.
podcast has its own X handle that doesn't really get used. So if you want to follow me and see what kind of irreverent complaining I have to do about various things or random baseball stats I throw out there, yeah, James Webb underscore 16 at the X. Best place to find
Yeah,
me.
cool, cool. So tell me, first of all, Foreign Relations Committee. Okay, so how bloodthirsty these guys are. They really believe the crap that they push, or is this just a show and act?
Honestly, it's really hard to come down either side of that. So I worked on the Foreign Relations Committee for 2.5 years, and Lindsey Graham was on there for a big chunk of time. Marco Rubio was on the Foreign Relations Committee at the same time, pretty much the entire time. And in terms of being bloodthirsty, I think there's just a disconnect between people who are implementing policy on, say, like the pointy tip of the spear, going out
Hmm.
there and doing it, or have experience in that realm. And I don't care where you pick it up. Even if you're working for a Department of State out front somewhere, you don't
Hmm.
have to be a trigger puller. Like nobody nobody in the Senate, or shall we say like the more elite parts of government, and to include the staff, especially the staff, really understand what war is, what the implications are, what the use of force is. And to accent this, your average staffer is in their mid to late 20s, maybe their early 30s. They've gone from a pipeline of prep schools to graduate schools to mentorship programs to different staffs, and their entire job is to support the boss. So it's this kind of self-licking ice cream cone where they're making decisions, or proposing decisions and different bits and pieces, that are in line with what's previously been done, or with what they think the consensus is. And one of the more disturbing things about all that, in my experience, was when I worked on the staff up there, I was one of maybe a couple people on either Republican or Democrat side who actually had military experience, let alone combat service. And when I would walk in and oppose something, whether it was the insertion of troops into Syria, whether it was a sanctions bill, because sanctions are economic warfare,
Yeah, right.
yeah, I would get looked at like I had some sort of phallus grown out of my face, because I was opposing this, and immediately it would go back to this like, well, he didn't go to the best school, you haven't done this graduate program, but it's like no, I spent part of my 20s, out there implementing the policies you guys put forward, and I've seen up close what it does, how it works, how it doesn't work, and there's just a massive disconnect, right? So but I will say that some of these folks I think are actually as bloodthirsty as they come off. One of them was Lindsey Graham. And it's he's a guy who just loved war. Once again, a guy who never experienced it. And then I think on the flip side, and this is probably a little more like biblical than anything else, is that it's uh it's infatuation with kind of a power lust, like that
Yeah.
you can make this decision that brings war. It's an adrenaline rush and ego trip. Basically nothing good. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so you can because it seems like Lindsay and that type, I think they got off on the fact that they could order somebody's death without actually, having to pull the trigger or look at the results or
Yeah.
live with the results of what yeah, they got that disconnect.
Yeah, and I mean, you're exactly right. It's as long as they don't have to see, the impacts up close, then like, I mean, I guess that's kind of a pun, but
Yeah.
then yeah, they're fine. And I mean, that's the flip side of that is, from what I found with my peers from the global war on terrorism,
Mhm.
anybody who's been in the military for the most part, like the closer you get to the flame, the less you like it.
Oh yeah.
And it's I mean, you can look at a guy like Joe Kent, who I just interviewed on my show not too long ago. We see eye to eye on so many different things, and that guy has more trigger time than just about anybody I've ever met. And he is, we're in the same boat where you got to have a long fuse before you go do that because it's you understand the personal expenditure of your being when you're in the middle of that. So it's got to be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you see the biggest cheerleaders are the people that are never gonna take the
Yeah.
risk. Fine, you want to pull the trigger, but you got to take the risk with it, and they never have to
Mhm.
take the risk.
Oh
It's
no,
like the Air
it
Force,
never.
by the way. Every Air Force around the world, they bomb somebody, then they go home and they sleep on white sheets and they eat a good dinner, and they never have to look at what that results are.
Yeah, no, actually, that reminds me of when we were going to Ramadi. I was the last guy on the C-130 in one of our stops. We were flying I think from Kuwait to Al Asad Air Base or something. I think that's what the leg was. And so like I had to talk to the loadmaster about the manifest. And it's a bunch of grunts getting on the back of a C-130 and they're loud, they're rowdy. People are obviously bitching and moaning about it. But the guy turns to me and says, he's like, man, I don't know what the big deal is. This is 2006, like the
Mhm.
height of the insurgency. He's like, I don't know what the big deal is about this. It's everybody everybody complains about Iraq, and this is like my fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever trip it is here, and I kind of like it. It's not that bad. And like I'm just like looking at him like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, and the real dark part about it was that like, and I said to him like, there's some guys in the back of this aircraft who aren't coming back.
Yeah.
Um, and he just like looked at me like, oh, whoops. And then immediately went back to what he was doing. And I sat down and was like, said some
Yeah.
stuff, which I can't repeat on the air here, but yeah, you're
Yeah.
exactly right. It's just like he was going home. He was gonna be back in his air conditioned trailer at the end of the day, and then after a month or two, he's gonna rotate back to I don't know, maybe Eglin Air Force Base down by the Gulf Coast, and life would be great. So,
Yeah. Drinking a beer, watching the sunset.
oh yeah,
Worst case is, mosquitoes and rattlesnakes or water moccasins.
yeah, sharks maybe, but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's it, it's well, let me ask you this, because the statistics I've seen, and I think it's gotten even worse, was that out of the Congress critters,
oh boy.
some like 3 or 4% was all that had ever served in the military in any capacity, in
Mhm.
any form ever put on a uniform. I mean, obviously one of them was Lindsey Graham right there, the most vicious co Air Force combat lawyer that ever existed. Uh, but the fact is, the vast majority never even put on a uniform. Well, maybe Israeli uniforms. Um, how about that one? That doesn't seem to get mentioned or counted.
No,
So
they tried. They tried to extend benefits to the IDF.
yeah, is that real?
It was real. I mean,
Really?
it comes up every now and then. Every now and again, they try to, and it comes up on the House side, and you know, righteously and justifiably so, people freak out about it. But I still have a little bit of faith and a little bit of confidence that nobody would be that stupid to lump them into our bucket. But
I
yeah, I
don't
mean,
know. July 17th, Congress comes back, so that's in 3 days. and they get
Yeah,
to vote on basically bringing Israel into the procurement system.
they do. They do. And that is exceptionally dangerous for the United States.
Oh
Exceptionally
yeah.
dangerous. I mean, and the thing that blows my mind about that is that there's no country on earth that has that much access to, you know, anything inside the house on our end. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
not the Five Eyes, which are supposedly our closest intelligence sharing folks. No one in NATO. I mean, you would think the Brits, if anybody, would be the ones who would do that, since we've been fighting alongside them since, I mean, geez, since basically since we stopped fighting them.
Mhm.
In the War of 1812, but World War One, World War Two, Korea, they weren't really in Vietnam. They were all over Iraq. They're all over Afghanistan. They are walking hand in hand with us, probably dog walking us a bit when it comes to Ukraine and Russia. But I mean, they're supposedly our biggest, most erstwhile ally. The Germans, not even them. And it's the way that that would go about is truly disturbing. There's two components to it that really irk me in a big way. And irk is probably the wrong word because it's a major problem for our security. Is the integration in terms of data fusion, everything from
Mhm.
AI. There's actually a component in the Intel reauthorization, Section 622, which would make it illegal to prevent the sharing of information with Mossad unless it was a directive from the president himself in terms of national security. And like you can't have that with anybody. But then the flip side of what is it? It was 224, now it's 219 in the NDAA, which you're
Right.
specifically mentioning here, is manufacturing. And they would get manufacturing rights and access to all the different things we're doing from a procurement standpoint. And to highlight how potentially dangerous this is to the U.S. is we have a provision here in the United States called Buy American.
Yeah.
And a place like Fort Meade, where the National Security Agency operates out of, I mean, probably Langley too, is all of our network equipment is tagged Buy American, which is to prevent a foreign actor from installing backdoors in these things and being able to watch our networks in real time. It's like the most logical and basic step for information security. And if you allow them to get inside the military industrial complex, which is a large segment of this, and they start manufacturing, say, network equipment because they are the self-professed, best electronic warfare folks in the world, et cetera, et cetera. And then what do you think happens? Yeah, all those network routers end up at NSA or Langley. And then you better believe that, they're going to have backdoors in there. And if they don't, it means
No, not the Israelis.
never, never, ever. But yeah, and it's I mean, that's gonna be a real litmus. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
big movement to strip that out, led by Thomas Massey, and there's a bit of a grassroots movement spearheaded by guys like Joe Kent to raise awareness. But we're existing in an environment right now where the voice of the American people doesn't really seem to matter at all on anything. We've had the biggest amount of executive overreach, I think, in our history, and
Oh
it
yeah.
keeps amping up. But this entire war in Iran is the executive branch of government doing whatever it wants. And that is specifically forbidden in the Constitution. You're supposed to, as you know, we're supposed to have three co-equal branches of government. They
Right.
balance each
Right.
other out, they check each other. But the legislative branch is just not doing its job at all.
And it
And
hasn't
it has
in
not.
a very, very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has not. And I mean, I look at the renewed strikes in Iran as basically the swan song for the legislature. It may as well be dissolved. It's not
Yeah.
even a rubber stamp. They're not rubber stamping anything. They're just letting it happen. And this is a bit tongue in cheek here, but like it's the lamest expiration of a legislature in the history of the world. Like at least at least in the 1930s in Germany, you got a fire in the Reichstag. Like, I mean, at least there was an attempt to be like, oh, look, it burned down. You guys can't meet.
Well, wait. To Hitler's, I'm not defending Hitler for obvious. As a Russian, I'm definitely not defending it. But to Hitler's credit, The Reichstag fire was just to get at the communists, and a good chunk, by the
Right.
way, of the Nazi Party were former communists. Uh,
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, that, but when he wanted to go attack Star Barbarossa, so he actually, because he's the chancellor, he's officially the chancellor, so he had to go in front of Parliament. I mean, it was a rubber stamp Parliament, everybody should, but
Yeah.
he actually went there, did a speech, and laid out that Stalin's going to invade us, which he wasn't. So we've got to get him first. Which, the standard European model. They're going to
Familiar.
take us in 28, so we'll have to attack them in 27. Yeah, okay. But he actually had to go and get a rubber stamp, but a stamp nonetheless. That yes, yes, now you can go Star Barbarossa, which Trump won't even have to do.
No, and that's I mean, yeah, that's we don't even get that here now. Like
Yeah.
that's literally the
Uh,
argument for attacking Iran was that except that it's like, well, the Israelis were going to do it, therefore we had to do it because then the Iranians were going to attack us. But then you get the other argument, which is, well, they were like he was just saying this the other day, like they were 2 weeks away from a nuke, and you better believe they were going to use it, so we had to go do this. It's like, well, okay, then why were you negotiating with them at the time, and you were spending all of your energy negotiating a deal with a country that apparently wanted to wipe us off the face of the map, or however you want to frame it, um, instead of getting in front of Congress and arguing for an authorization of force. And
yep.
just it's as well, it's because he knows he doesn't have to do it. And under our Constitution, those kinds of actions are impeachable, just like that. It
Yep.
would be a slam dunk. But no, we don't even get that.
A little quiz. So when was the first mention of Iran from the country that shall not be named? People are going to ask, why are you saying that? There's a reason, unfortunately.
Oh, my
Um,
camera shut off.
yeah, exactly. There seems to be a keyword filter involved. So mortar on the Middle East, mortar on on the Mediterranean. Uh, Apparently, okay. So here's the Jeopardy quiz. When was the first time that it was mentioned? What year that Iran was 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon?
How many seconds do I get?
As many as you need.
Okay,
Oh
I
yeah,
will.
without typing it in the computer.
I'm gonna go with 1996.
Good shot, but not good enough. I think that
Okay.
was Netanyahu. It was 1996. No, 1984.
Whoa. Okay.
Jerusalem Post. That's right.
Man,
There was an article in Jerusalem Post, 1984. So freaking 42 years ago. They're 2 weeks
jeez.
away from a nuclear weapon. I think they could have had them on the moon by this point if they really wanted them that
Yeah,
badly.
seriously,
It's like 42 years they've been repeating this, and people are still buying into it.
man. Yeah, I mean, well,
Right?
I've got a memory or like a institutional memory is probably about 15 minutes. The average American pays attention to something for about 30 seconds. So I mean, that was news to me. I feel like I'm on top of things most of the time, but then again, like 1984 was a long time ago. I was not, shall we say, cognizant at
Oh,
that point. But
okay,
I should.
okay. Let's jump forward just a little bit.
Sure.
Um, who was the civilian at that point, non-government official, primary witness to Congress to get the invasion of Iraq going for
You're
2003?
talking 2003.
Star witness to Congress.
Star witness to Congress.
You know the name.
I got to pick one though. That's the problem
Yeah.
here. My brain is stuck over in the Pentagon.
And not Colin Powell, who was part of the government and his
Right.
little white. Apparently, Colin Powell didn't even know that it was just detergent that was in that little white packet.
Oh man. Um, just just
Anthrax.
just for fun, I'm gonna say Ahmed Shalabi.
Nope.
Ah,
Netanyahu.
then yeah. Oh, come on, it was too
He was,
obvious.
he was,
Oh,
there you go. He was in between his political career, so he had a couple days here and there. You just go testify for the U.S. Congress, get him to invade Iraq. Yeah, yeah, he was.
yeah,
And again, Iraq's about to have weapons of mass destruction, or some
yeah.
other, yeah. He's been
Well, you
at us for
guys.
a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember I'm a student of a clean break and the policy papers that
Hmm.
he had cranked out of the Pentagon prior to that in the 90s by Pearl and Wolfowitz and Doug Feith, the whole kit and caboodle over there, talking about how we need to install some kind of strange Hashemite kingdom in the Middle East, and it started with getting rid of all these countries we just happened to have invaded, even though we're not following that script.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. And now they've shown I mean you know what a friend of mine he was actually one of my staff sergeants this guy I'm not going to mention his name because he works he still does contract work for the government um but he was a former Marine. He joined the
Okay.
army afterwards, and he was in the barracks bombing
Oh, really?
back in Lebanon. Yeah, he was stationed there when it happened. And what I've been told by several people in the know or who were in the U.S. Intelligence networks at that point. I mean, just obviously this is well past this expiration date. Was that the Israelis knew?
Hmm.
They knew it was going to happen. They chose to let it happen. They removed their own people from the path to let it happen because they had a grudge against Reagan, something they wanted. Reagan forced them out of Lebanon.
Hmm.
He told them get when he saw the pictures of the dead kids, get the hell out, and they got out of Beirut. But this is before Hezbollah formed, so they paid back. They found out that this was a plot that was going to happen, and they just stood back and let it happen.
Not surprised. I've read that somewhere. I think it's in a book. I can't recall off the top of my head. It's one of those things where you have an idea that that's probably the case, and
Yeah.
then you get confirmation and go, yeah, figured. And then just on to the next thing because it's par for the course, right?
Yep. Yep.
So,
That's yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. It's but what can you do? So what do you think is gonna yeah, t technically what do you think? Could they order a Poseidon class submarine once they're inside the system? Was there anything that would stop them from being able to do some of that? B-52 bombers
so
or B-2 bombers?
that's that's a great question. I don't think it would be as direct as that. It would
Hmm.
be, let's put it this way. It would enable their classic forms of espionage at a much more
Oh.
ready and easy level. I mean, you run it back different things, like, oh, I mean, all kinds of things. Go back to the 80s on different types of technology they forwarded
Hmm.
to the Chinese in particular. They love getting our tech and then trying to sell it. I mean, I believe it's the J-10 aircraft. Started off
Hmm.
as a joint American-Israeli program, and it went on for a couple years, and then the Israelis scrapped it, and they turned to the Chinese and said, "Oh, hey, by the way, we have this, you know, this aircraft that's pretty much built that's got some pretty cool components in it that might be made in America. And here you go. What do you think?" And they said, "Thank you." And then there's like the AWACS is another one, our early warning airborne radar. They were gonna put it on it was an IL-76.
Hmm.
That program went on for 4 years until we in DC screamed and threw a fit about it, but it didn't prevent, I'm sure, the technology from getting out. Just the program was never
Yeah.
completed. Tanks, I mean, you name it, you allow them inside the system, and they will do whatever is in their best interest. And you can't fault a country for acting in its best interest, but what you can do is protect yourself. I mean, it's like to go back to reference, like, I mean, my definition, I'm hoping it's God's definition of forgiveness in the Bible, right? Like, you can forgive somebody for doing something stupid or hurting you or acting in their best interest and running you over, but it doesn't mean you have to let them do it again.
Right. Right.
So it's and what we're doing is we're putting them in a position to do whatever they want on the inside. And quite frankly, like, go back to what I said a second ago, which is no one else is allowed this kind of access. No one should be allowed this kind of access. But even if you were going to give somebody access, it should not be a country that has no guardrails whatsoever. I mean,
Yeah.
they are running our foreign policy right now, much to our detriment, and everybody sees that, except the people who are elected, because they're on the dole. But no, like, I mean, if I'm thinking objectively, right? This is like, let's just say the Iran war was the first time this had happened, that they had fed a bunch of bad intelligence to the highest levels of government, who then in turn overrode our own intelligence agencies in terms
Hmm.
of like what the threat actually looked like. And it turned into this horrific disaster. One would assume that for a while that whatever country did that would be kept on a very short leash, or just like sent outside. Like, okay, you know what? We don't want to play with you anymore. Just
Right.
go away. Um, but no, we're allowing them more access, and like the ultimate access, if you will. But to answer, will it be B-52s? No, I don't think so. But it will allow them to see, in many cases, and it's gonna be incremental over time, right? As each one of these companies starts working with another company on different programs, you're gonna get access to whatever that program has. So, like, let's say they start off with a component for a sensor that is really good on an unmanned ground vehicle. Just pick something out, right? And then that sensor has uh, a it has the ability to be fitted on a missile. Well, then you're going to figure out the components of that missile, and then it walks its way up.
Right.
And also their capabilities for developing such a suite expand, and it just moves around. And then before you know it, over a decade, I mean, who knows what they won't be able to produce?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's incredible because I don't, somebody told me once, it's not in there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution against it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I could say there's nothing in any country's constitution against it because nobody would have thought of doing something like that. Why would
Yeah.
you put it in there? Thou shall not allow another nation to own you.
It's very heavily implied that, like, when you have a nation, yeah, that's kind of the first rule, right? Isn't that like kind of the core tenet of being sovereign, right? You're not
Yeah.
owned by anybody else.
Thou shall not be anybody's bitch. The First Amendment. Thou shalt not be anyone's bitch. Second Amendment. Have a weapon.
Exactly, to enforce the First Amendment.
Yeah, exactly. That's my biggest gripe against well, not against, but in Russia. I miss my
Hmm.
guns. Uh, yeah, Russia has. I mean, I can technically, since I'm a citizen now, I can put in to get a smooth barrel rifle or shotgun.
Okay.
It's tight. It's looser than most of Europe, but it's still tight. Um, you can get as a citizen. I mean, you have to do a psych test. Okay, that's not too much. I'm insane, but I can hide it. Yeah, no, I'm military. We're all deformed mentally to some
Oh
degree.
yeah.
But the you do that. You own a smooth bore for 5 years, and after that, you can get a rifled barrel, which you'd think would be the other way around because if you want to commit a crime, smooth bore is the way to go. You can't trace it back. That,
Oh
but
yeah.
it it's but you can't own pistols, firearm pistols. You can own air pistols. And this is
Hmm.
the liberals love this in Russia, by the way. Because they oh yeah, air pistols. I mean, at half a meter, they'll punch through your skull.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, high compressed air. You got the little
Mhm.
you got the little metal container with air in it, and then
Yeah,
you
too.
shove it. Yeah, you shove it in there, the cartridge. But at like at 2 meters, it may bruise you just a little bit. Just
Yeah.
it loses a lot of power, but point blank. And sooner or later, and people don't take those as weapons per se. And oh, I'll punish you, pop. Maybe I'll bruise your rib, pop. And sooner or later, somebody goes pop, half a meter away from somebody's skull, and there's a corpse. Uh,
Whoops.
and then the media's, the liberals start screaming, you see, you can't let Russians have guns. They'll just go ape shit and shoot each other. It's like, no, they won't. But the military and the police can have guns because I guess they're different caste. That's like, how does that make any sense? But yeah,
Yeah.
so the Second Amendment is a good amendment. I like the Second Amendment.
Great. Task amendment. I mean, the thing that I appreciate about it is that I control my own destiny whenever I leave my
Yeah.
front door. And there's a great quote from 50 Cent, uh, the prophet 50 Cent. Police never respond fast enough to shots fired because who's going to come running towards the
Oh
guns?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's against human nature, but like I can protect my family. I can
yeah.
protect myself, like without question. And there's the argument in the states, like it's kind of a weird argument. It's like they both say like, well, you got to have training, but then they take a look at like veterans, like, whoa, they're crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
too much training.
Too much training. Like there's got to be a happy middle ground somewhere. But but yeah, I know what I'm doing. And I very much appreciate that. Granted, it's the intent of it is to prevent a tyrannical government.
Right.
But at the same time, it's also based on the based on natural law, where you're
Yeah.
supposed to have the inherent right of self-defense too. So it's
And it's a great defense against invasion, by the way, that things like that.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh man.
If you got to worry about every second civilian's going to go run, grab a rifle, the cost maybe it's a little bit higher than you figured originally.
Yeah, I mean that's what we ran into in Iraq,
Yeah.
in a big way. Real big way was that after they issued Coalition Provisional Authority Order Number One, debathification, they sent everybody home with their rifles and they left every ammunition supply point wide open. So everybody who did not like Americans or anybody on their foreign soil all of a sudden had access to military grade hardware. And it was a headache, to put it mildly. I got a headache a couple times,
Yeah.
but that was explosions. But so,
And consider most of those people were also former Iraqi officers. That didn't
yeah,
help any.
no, no, particularly in
Uh,
Ramadi, which was it's where Saddam put a bunch of his training schools.
mhm.
And it was like where the cream of the Republican Guard lived. And I mean that was a pretty well for Iraqis. They were very well disciplined. They were very competent. They're very capable, and they also probably had some outside help too.
Well,
Which
yeah, I'm sure.
yeah, not gonna point fingers in any particular direction, but I mean because we do the same thing, right?
Saudis. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Did I cough in the right direction?
You did.
Yeah, yeah. That was one of the things that happened in Chechnya too. Was what we call Jihad International now, but
Mhm.
you know, it was. I mean, it was CIA sponsored, but they poured in jihadis from everywhere. And when the Second Chechen War started, the interesting thing is most of the Chechens that had fought the federal forces were actually running to switch sides to the federal forces, because what had
Okay.
happened was they became a minority in their own land
Yeah.
because all the Arabs and all the Indonesians and everything just poured in and took over. That's it. Okay, thanks, Chechens. You're a second-class citizen now. And they were quite literally running two slave markets, and half the, they were, I mean, they were kidnapping girls from uh, surrounding areas, Russians, Georgians, Dagestanis, well, not like 20 different nationalities in Dagestan, but they were also kidnapping Chechen girls and selling
Mm.
them in Chechnya. So yeah, so
But that caused some heartburn.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a sore feeling, you know. Yeah, you're already somebody's second class, biatch in your own homeland. And Chechens are pretty proud people, so that
Oh
didn't
yeah.
sit too well with them for obvious reasons.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
interesting. It's didn't expect this, but that's actually an interesting parallel to right around 2007 in Ramadi,
mhm.
where you had the Sunni awakening,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
it was like I got to be front and center for that, and it was beyond the surreal nature of it. You had kind of it sounds very similar, where you had Al Qaeda in Iraq, which then became ISIS as Ayman
hmm,
al-Zawahiri group. Then um, they had all kinds of foreign fighters flow in from everywhere. I mean,
yep,
in
yep,
Hungary himself was, I believe he was Jordanian, or Zarqawi. Pardon me, I'm Zawahiri, Zarqawi, but whatever. He's dead now.
yeah.
But but
Hopefully,
yeah, but yeah, they got sick and tired of the jihadis because they were coming in and dictating terms, and like the
yep.
real turning point was when they killed a bunch of local sheikhs for being like,
Mm.
you know what, we don't really want to support you anymore. You're causing too much mayhem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then decided they were going to dictate their external terms to the people there. And with a pallet of cash from the U.S. government to sweeten the deal, I guess, maybe just to be the deal, they switched sides. So it's interesting how that kind of parallels.
It's happened in many countries. Whatever you want to say about the Afghanis, the Taliban, they're
Hmm.
not imperialists. They want power just in their own country. But and then you got well, I'm not gonna say how they got there. You got IGIL that suddenly shows up in Afghanistan, a bunch of Arabs like, how did you get there again?
Hmm.
How many black C-130s did you fly in
Oh yeah. Yeah.
there? Okay. Yeah, because
Mhm.
that never happens.
Oh
Um
no, 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 not at all.
what a mess. Well, was Lindsay making money off that?
It's a good question. I mean, it's the dust is still settling with that guy over here. I mean, and I'll be frank with you. I didn't read the article because I got pushed a notification from Fox News on my phone, and I will not touch that anymore. Um, but it was like, oh, is he had a disclosure come out, and he was a modest man. Like, no, no, no one up
Lindsay?
there. Yeah, not at all. No, that guy, they're portraying him as the pro-American workaholic who was totally dedicated to the country and his job, so busy that he couldn't even have a family.
Oh, boy.
Um,
Yeah. Well, you mean a traditional family.
yeah, yeah. But but no, I don't know if he was making bank off it or not, but a lot of people definitely did. And I mean, I mean, it's like you just go back to how the jihadi movement was put together in Afghanistan in the 70s and 80s.
Oh yeah.
Matching dollar for dollar, US dollar per Saudi dollar. And this is, one of the arguments I was making up on the Hill at the time was, the Pakistani Taliban was completely funded, even to that day, by the Saudi government.
Oh yeah.
They
Absolutely.
set up an entire madrasa system all through the country back in the 80s to turn out fighters. You indoctrinate these kids
Mhm.
into doing the thing, for lack of a better term. Not to be too flip, but it was still going on. And like something like the Haqqani network was almost entirely staffed and at levels, and funded by
Yep.
the Saudi government, which was the ultimate blowback from the 80s because we put those people in place to fight the Soviets
Oh
over
yeah.
there.
Yeah. But
So,
the Saudis have done the same thing. They try to do it in Russia. They've been rolled back. I mean, actively,
mhm.
the government came in. It's like the traditional imams that are part of but 10% of the Russian population is Muslim, and these people are from Muslim areas. They're traditionally Islam, not this Wahhabi
Right.
crap.
Mhm.
And the government finally took notice and started rolling back. But if you notice that, the Saudis have been very successful in the U.S. and Western Europe, doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
They take over mosque after mosque after mosque,
Mhm.
and then start breeding out the brainwashed psychopaths.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that. There's the Fort Hood shooter,
Uh-huh.
um,
Yeah,
and
remember him.
and Anwar al-Awlaki.
Hmm.
Both were part of the mosque that was across the street from my high school.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, it was we had a very large Muslim community
Hmm.
in Northern Virginia where I grew up. Great people, lots of Palestinians, still my friends to this day. And but it was very surreal to be cognizant in that time where you'd see a guy like, in particular, al-Awlaki, who later was assassinated, and his son was assassinated by Obama as part of his
Hmm.
kill list stuff.
Oh, yeah, I
Uh,
remember that.
yeah, but he
15-year-old
was
son.
yeah, yeah. It's like it was like a mob hit where they didn't want him to grow up to avenge his dad, but he was the spokesman. Like they went into this mosque and he was supposed to be like the moderate guy right post 9/11. Excuse me, I had a bit of a cold, but yeah, and but then you see the arc, right? He goes high into the right, up into Al Qaeda, and then you have the Fort Hood shooter who spent a number of years there, then goes to Fort Hood and does his thing. So I don't have the actual numbers on it, but it makes you wonder how much influence
Oh,
is
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Pretty clearly.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the Saudis have gotten a green light, basically. Money talks, bullshit walks.
Yeah. Yep.
I remember there was even a big scandal when it turned out that the U.S. embassy in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, was handing back wives who were U.S. citizens who had been, oh, my Prince Charming, he's my sultan of my dreams. And I get there like smack, get in the corner, your property. And they're like, suddenly they get the rude awakening. The Arabian Nights are over.
Yeah.
And they ran to the U.S. embassy, and the U.S. embassy handed them back over to their husbands, U.S. citizens. So
Jeez.
yeah, no, because again. How much is the ambassador getting sponsored? How much is staff getting sponsored? And that's what came out was the Saudis were sponsoring their retirement plans.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
totally, totally above board. I'm sure, probably
absolutely.
completely unethical. So,
Well, I mean, the next question is how much is the country shall not be named sponsoring the latest ambassadors? Yeah. The
oh
the ambassador of the country that shall not be named to the country that shall not be named.
yeah, no, I mean that guy is. I mean the the odd thing is like so. I mean, there's a very strong argument that exactly what you're talking about is going on because otherwise, why else would he be saying what he's saying and acting the way he is? But then again, this dude was so far gone on the front
Oh
end
yeah.
that it would not surprise me if he was doing it for free. But then again, you you have this whole apparatus here in the United States, and of which he was, I'm sure he was a part of, that I had to deal with on the Foreign Relations Committee as one of my duties as a staffer. They're called KUFI, Christians United for Israel. They get handheld by APAC on the way in, and the thing that really blow my mind is like you would get these local ministers like Baptists in particular, not to throw too much shade, but they'd come in and they would talk to me about foreign funding for the country that shall not be named. And it's just like, what, dude? Like, you're from rural Kentucky. Like, shouldn't you all be in here, like, looking for a bridge or some infrastructure work? And then at the end of it, the most depressing thing would be is like, I have deep family ties to Eastern Kentucky and
Hmm.
Southwestern Virginia, coal country. Those people are not well off.
No, no, they're not.
Yeah, they're very proud, but like, and they have a way of life they love, but at the same time, what was foisted upon them with the coal industry and everything else has now been ripped away. So there's
Yep.
nothing back there.
Yep.
And try and go in and make talk with them, see how things were back home, whatever. You could tell that these folks, didn't come from a whole lot. And then at the end of it, you'd get one guy and probably his like nicest flannel from Walmart standing up and asking for a couple $1 billion to be sent over to the country that shall not be named. And like my job was not to have an opinion, and it took every ounce of self-control I had not to just be like, what the are you talking about? Like, holy cow, man. But yeah, but they have they're getting the point where that is they're pumping the money in on the front end and cultivating this, and you get a guy like our ambassador to the country that shall not be named. And he's already gotten rich off it. So maybe it
Oh
is
yeah.
just payback, or maybe it is, maybe it's like a promotion, next step up in the next income bracket.
I mean, I grew up in North Carolina. I spent
Mhm.
half my life in the U.S. Most of my childhood is down in North Carolina. So I grew up amongst a lot of. I'm Orthodox myself, so that's
Mhm.
we don't have this infatuation with that shall not be named. In fact, there's quite the opposite because of the abuses against the Jerusalem patriarchy.
Mhm.
Um, but so I was watching. I had this short pop up on YouTube. And it was a guy, they were showing this their church. There was one of those low Protestant churches
Mhm.
and Sunday school. And and they're teaching it begins with the clip where the guy that's by the way whose video this is, he's he's one of the teachers. And he's like, look, you just have to understand Jews are just genetically better people than we are. I'm like, I'm not a racist person, but I'll tell you this. The hell somebody's gonna tell my kids some other ethnicity is better than they are. Everybody, first of all,
Yeah.
judge people by by each individual. You get outliers in every direction. But my God, when you're being told you are second class and just accept your role to a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And they had about maybe a 13-year-old, and he's just sitting there like, he doesn't want to take that, but he's being just mentally indoctrinated to that. And it's like,
Yeah.
God Almighty! It's like these
Yeah.
people really believe that?
Yeah. No, and it's eye-opening. Like I'm Catholic.
Mhm.
It's and
So you're the guys that broke away from us.
yeah.
If you ask us, anyways.
But it's I've like it comes from my mom's side, who her family is Eastern European, Slavic,
Mhm.
and they I've been exposed to pretty much every denomination that you can possibly have in the U.S. My wife is a former hardcore Southern Baptist from the middle of nowhere, Missouri. I got her to convert to Catholic Church. Never in a million years saw that one coming. But like when we were back there, we didn't go to Catholic Church. We went to the most conservative type of service we could find.
Mhm.
But and when we moved to where we're at now, we had to pick a church, and that's how she started her grand sprint towards Catholicism. But no, we'd go. It was after October 7th, and we would go past Baptist church after Baptist church, which is we stand with Israel. We tried a couple different ones where they're up, from the pulpit, talking exactly like the way you're talking, but like in terms of like how we must support them regardless, et cetera, et cetera. And like my whole thing is like I when it comes to that, it's more like I don't want your politics. I don't need you to tell me to support the government of a country
Right.
at my religious service. And so why are you doing this? And I'm done. I'm just done with it. So then we went to the Catholic Church, which was much better. But it's and you don't get that there, right? And of course, the country that we shall not be named doesn't particularly care for Catholics either.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, the previous pope had written was a letter of was it a previous pope or is it? No, it was a previous pope. Wrote a letter to of complaint basically, or to was it the UN? Because the Israelis had shot Israeli snipers had shot two Catholic women, a mother and a daughter, in a
yeah,
courtyard in a monastery beside the church where the people were hiding. So, it just, I mean, sniper fire.
yeah.
Two unarmed women, an elderly woman and one in her late middle ages. I mean, seriously?
I just yeah, yeah.
It's
I
well, they do the same thing with Orthodox. They bombed they in Palestine, in Gaza, they destroyed uh, the oldest Orthodox church in the area, which is from the fourth century. Not major. NSQ heritage site. Who cares? At that point, 1,600 years, no problem. No problem. I mean, it's not 3,000 years, obviously, so we can take it out. You can rebuild it, never. Uh, so yeah, it's just insane. And watching these, you know, just brainwash kids. Come on, seriously?
yeah, yeah. But the good news is though all that is wearing off in the United States, in a big way. I mean, it's I think that's we're talking about section was it I guess it's 219 now. The push for integration, the war in Iran, all of these huge crescendo type events are a direct result of popular opinion of Israel. Geez, I did it, didn't I? I wasn't supposed to do that. Um, the
Oh,
country that shall
oh,
not
the
be named.
camera's moving. The camera's zooming in.
I got the button over here. I'm prepared. It's on a different screen. What they don't realize is if they cut my camera, it doesn't cut my mic because it goes through a different thing. But so the opinion is all time low, and it's uniform on both sides. So you have a 60% disapproval within both parties. Um, it's 57 and 63 comes out to 60%. But then the younger you get, the higher that disapproval
Yep.
goes. And people now understand that, and it's I don't know how they managed to equate the government of a foreign state with an entire religious people in their indoctrination. I mean, it's pretty slick, but
Yep.
it's not working like it used to, which is, I guess, some silver lining there.
Well, look, the Germans were doing the same thing under Hitler.
Mm.
Same type of mentality, same type of attempt. My grandfather was a German. He well, he was born in Eastern German Empire. He became Poland. Became a
Mm.
Polish officer when he lost everything on cards. Um, yeah, had to feed his family. Well, his first wife, anyways. So he joined he was a surgeon. Joined the horse cavalry. Got taken prisoner by the Red Army in 39. Year later, joined the Red Army. as an officer, and then fought all, he was a field surgeon, fought to save a lot of lives, but
Yeah.
went to Berlin basically. Just doing quite. I don't think they ever went into Berlin. They were the field surgeons. They're just outside the city. But yeah,
Mhm.
so he fought against the Germans, well, the Nazis as a German. And there were a lot of ethnic Germans in Russia that did the same thing. But they try to
Mhm.
equate the same thing. Oh, yeah, if you're not, if you're a Volk Deutsch and you're not with Hitler, then you're just a racial traitor. They
Mhm.
all try to do that. These kinds of
Mhm.
regimes always work that way.
Mhm.
Because that's the only thing they have. Uh, you
Yeah.
know,
Fair point.
it doesn't work all the time, but some people it does work though, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to work for enough time to cause a lot of damage before people figure it out. That's not ever good.
You know what amazed me? You got Pollard. He's an upstanding citizen right there.
Yeah.
By the way, how come he hugged and has, this guy's a great guy. So Pollard is running for the Knesset, and you cannot have dual citizenship in the Knesset. So he's given up his U.S. citizenship.
Mhm.
By the way, Russia's passed that law too. Anyways, Russia had a big problem with dual citizens in parliament. Americans, British,
Interesting.
that shall not be mentioned.
Mhm.
Were quite represented quite well. So you're starting to wonder whose laws are you pushing? Whose interests?
Yeah.
You can't have that. I mean, for obvious reasons. So Pollard's gotten dropped. Did you hear Pollard's little speech?
I did not. I try to
Well,
ignore him as much as possible.
well, there was a clip in there. That was a very good clip, but basically he's saying, how next we're going to take out Turkey and we're going to take out Egypt because, we cannot have them. They're the next big enemy. This is why they can't finish Iran off. But, Turkey, Egypt's out there somewhere. It doesn't have any documents signed with the U.S. But Turkey's got quite a few documents signed with the
Just a
U.S.
couple. Just a couple.
Yeah, alliance documents. So how do you think they would handle that one? Uh, you know,
Well, I'm gonna say with the utmost amount of optimism that I don't think they'll ever get to that point. I mean, it's the so to be somewhat cynical about this and to be I don't know, also like, just look at things like in a very practical way. Um, they can't even handle killing a whole bunch of civilians in Palestine who are unarmed. Like they have their hands full with that. They like I mean that's supposed to be the punchline really, but they're not doing a great job in in their prosecution of a war on Lebanon. They are out of their depth with the war in Iran, and they don't have the manpower. They don't have the manpower. They don't
yeah,
have the logistics. They would absolutely 100% need the United States to do that. And the appetite for war here right now is zero. And the big problem that the American people are having right now is they don't know what to do to fix this. So I mean, you're going to see all the different bits and pieces of I think a massive reaction here starting in the fall, where the Republicans are going to get blown out in the primaries. Unfortunately, you have a bit of a uniparty on both sides,
hmm
but it's going to be a demonstrated reaction to what's been going on. And on the current arc, though, I mean, maybe once again, some cynical silver lining here is that the Trump administration has made the economic realities here in the United States so bad, with fueled by this war, inflation, fuel prices. I mean, we haven't even begun to see what's going to happen with the food supply. I mean,
Oh yeah.
the amount of fertilizer and everything else that comes out of the Gulf is not reaching farms around the world. That I don't think we're going to have the capacity for an offensive war for a long time. And I mean, it's once again silver lining. It's a bit of a self correction.
Yep.
And I hope that gets us back to the foundational principles of this country, which is enemies with none, trade with everybody, but we possess enough of a military force that if you come try and be stupid enough to float across the Atlantic or the Pacific to invade us, like you're just never going to get it done. It's just a bad idea, and that's where we need to be. But I don't see us going to war with the Turks. But I wouldn't put it past Netanyahu if he stays in power and doesn't go to jail this fall, which he should, to try and to try something with the Egyptians. But the flip side of that is I don't know how good the Egyptian military is, but I do know that they're fairly well equipped because
Oh yeah.
they have all of our gear. That's part of the deal between us, the Israelis, and the Egyptians is a bit of an equal amount of military funding. I mean, they've got Apaches, they've got some serious gear.
Do they have
And
Apaches? Seriously. I know they got Abrams and they got Bradleys, but
yeah,
they
pretty
got
sure they do.
Apaches. Huh. I
They
didn't
do.
know that.
I'll have to check that. I may have just stepped in it and be totally wrong, but I believe that they have Apaches. But they've got some pretty good equipment. They've got some
Yeah.
decent training. But the most important thing is they're fresh. If
Oh
the
yeah.
Israelis want to if the Israelis want to go pick a fight with them, they're doing it after fighting what 7, 8, 9, 10 countries over
Yep.
the past
Yep.
year and getting not a whole lot done except burn their guys out.
Oh no, they've killed quite a few civilians.
Oh, well, they're good. They're pretty good at
Yeah.
that.
2000
72,000.
yeah, 2,000 pound bomb into the base of a apartment of a concrete apartment building does wonders for
Yeah.
renovating landscape.
Yeah, seriously.
And
Oof.
I'm being, yeah, it's people are like, oh, you're laughing at stuff like, hey, it's a laugh through tears or just tears, you know.
Yeah. It's what
It's
happens when you're in the military for a while. You get a real dark sense of humor. I mean, you
oh
gotta
yeah, you do.
if you can't laugh at the horror, then you'll go insane.
Oh yeah, my wife's still not used to it. You know, that's after so many years. Like, you know me, like, oh yes, I know. My father was never like that. Yeah, your father kept a lot inside. Yes,
Yeah, exactly. I keep a lot
uh,
aside from my kids too, but
yeah,
life's different story.
yeah, exactly. So, I know I've held you on for quite a while.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, and I'm hoping this is not the last chat, but the beginning of a lot of chats.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been great.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for coming on.
Mhm.
Look forward to getting you on back on.
All right, Seth.
And we'll keep By the way, how do you like Trump's new proposal? He wants the Arabs to pay for the war, and he wants 20% of the value of whatever passes. It's like a mob boss.
Oh, I mean,
I'm gonna screw your neighborhood up, and I'm gonna take 20%.
yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's I wish that he had the competence of a mob boss at this point, but I am not convinced. At not even close. It's so disjointed and I mean basically schizophrenic. I mean, I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
saying he's schizo, but I mean it's like so today, like you had, coming into today, it was the 20% on top of everything coming out, which was ridiculous. And then I'm sure Marco Rubio or somebody pulled him into a room and was like, hey, there's a video of me from the end of June saying that that's an international waterway and nobody has the right to impose anything. And so he changed his whole arc, which is now exactly what you're talking about, but they're getting rid of the 20%. But then we're going to make everybody pay for it, and we're just going to blockade the blockade, and then we're going to bomb you, and then you're going to listen to us, and it's this nonsensical stuff. And in all seriousness, what really bothers me about it is that you take a look at Iran and you take a look at what's going on in Ukraine. And obviously you guys are in the middle of it. There
oh yeah,
is
yeah.
that we are relying here in the United States, we are relying on cooler heads of foreign leaders to make sure that we don't get smacked. And you can frame that however you want, but we are provoking and killing members of other countries, provoking the countries, killing their service members, killing their civilians, directly and indirectly. And we're relying on the leaders of those countries not to retaliate against us when we would do it in a heartbeat. And at some point, my chief worry is that all that goodwill goes away.
Yep,
And then what do we do?
yep, yep,
Because the American people are not mentally prepared uh, for any type of serious conflict, nor do they really understand what's going on.
yep,
Um,
yep.
it's that's just not good for business.
No, you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. It's a mess. And we're still waiting for I won't even say cooler heads, wiser heads to
Yeah.
finally appear. So, and to finish on a good note, we get a new wiser head coming in. It's called Lindsey Graham's sister. South Carolina can't catch a break, man.
Oh man, I mean it's I blame nobody but the South Carolina voter. I know so many people who live there, and I always ask them, how the heck do you guys have Lindsey Graham? How?
I've
And
asked
they
that
can never
many
answer the question.
times.
Yeah, like nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And he goes away. Not to make light of anybody's death because that's the wrong thing to do. But he goes away finally, and then you get his sister.
Yeah,
Like,
she's been appointed by the governor.
yeah,
Of all the friggin' people in South Carolina, it's a sister.
yeah. You couldn't like. I mean, and it's you could even like have some like real politique attached to that, where the governor goes, "Hey, I like this guy, so I'm going to elevate him to further my stock." Like,
Yep.
somebody who's like a state legislator or a congressman or somebody or lieutenant governor. No, you got to pick the guy's sister who doesn't know anything about anything. Um, and it's so transparently corrupt. Let's
Oh, I
put it that way.
know. I know. It's it's like I said, South Carolinians cannot catch a break. It's 24-hour hurricane season. Seven,
Yeah.
7 days a week, 12 months
Yeah.
a year.
Ah,
My heart goes out to you guys. Did choose better, wiser.
you better, South Carolina.
Oh,
Don't let it
jeez.
be.
You know the well, I was gonna say North Carolina, but you know the claim to fame, North Carolina for the Civil War.
No, I do not.
First Confederate soldier to die and the last Confederate soldier. I don't know how they like prove that, but
Bookended.
that's the theory. Anyways, that's the legend.
Jeez.
First one to die, last one to die. It's like, yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
It's
Did not have a good time.
no.
2 out of 5 stars. Do not recommend.
All right, folks. Thank you for joining us. We shall be back.
All right,
Uh,
Stas. Appreciate
yep.
it.
Cheers.